Hey guys, it's Sarah Ashley from Sarah Ashley Astrology. This is something very new for me, something that I am not used to and not comfortable with. And if I want to practice what I'm preaching, I'm going to get myself out of my comfort zone. And my comfort zone for so long has been talking about the astrology, in terms of the collective and how to help other people, talking about what's going on with you guys. And I hardly ever talk about myself, my past. You guys know a few little shallow, trivial things about me, but not much. But don't forget, of course, I got to say this too: like, share, follow, subscribe, all the good things if you want to see more videos like this. And I also have a personal subscription service where you get weekly and monthly Astro Tarot readings that are in depth. They're collective readings. And also in that monthly, you guys get free personalized tarot readings, discounts, and also cool content like this. I'm going to be sharing more of this kind of stuff on the subscriber group that comes right into your inbox. But I'm not going to put up too many more vulnerable posts like this in the collective. It's kind of funny because I'm not wearing any makeup today. And so it's really appropriate. It's really appropriate because I'm going to come in raw. I'm going to come in raw. I really feel like this video is to allow other people to feel seen. It's not just about me, trauma dumping on you guys. A lot of you might be going through this similar transit right now or have gone through a transit like this in your life. And this is going to provide an aha moment for you as to why things were happening in a certain type of way. I also want to highlight in this video something that a lot of you guys are talking about doing in the collective right now that I actually attempted at doing a few years ago, well, 10 years ago, and it didn't work out the way I thought it was. So it's kind of like a word from the wise here, from the experienced to you to help you out to understand that, you can't just escape. You can't escape from this reality. You can't escape from this matrix. All right, so let's get started with my personal share, my story here, which I said has been uncomfortable for me, but I'm going to do it anyways because I've been called to. So, about 10 years ago in 2015, August 2015, my husband, my then 4-year-old daughter and I, we decided to travel abroad and live abroad. I was a high school special education and English language arts teacher. My husband at the time was a middle school social studies teacher. And as prices were going up and they're still going up. And I was a stay-at-home mom for a little bit during the time. My daughter was only 4. I was looking back to go back into the workforce, but because of the longer days at the high school at that time, it was like from 9 to 6 o'clock. I would have had to, stay after. My daughter would have had to be at daycare, for like 9 hours. And that was just not something I thought was productive for her at that age, something that would have been enriching for her soul. So my husband and I were looking to, kind of see what is available for us so we could still be hands-on parents and my daughter can get a good experience, get a good education. And we decided to take the option of selling our house in San Antonio, Texas, selling everything that we owned. And we went abroad to Taiwan. I'm not going to say what school, what city, or anything. I'm just going to say Taiwan. This is not a video to bash Taiwan at all. Taiwan is a beautiful country. It's was literally called that by the Portuguese Formosa, beautiful country. And I would encourage everybody to visit. Okay, it is very safe, especially for women, and they have beautiful, just beautiful people there too. They're just so kind, so gentle. I had basically nothing but good experiences with the Taiwanese people. So definitely want to say that. So we decided to move there, and I was going to just like substitute teach for the year because there wasn't a position open for me, and my husband would work full time. And my daughter would get free tuition to the private school that we're going to work at. So it was an American school. So it was based on American curriculum. And many of the students there were going to go to like Canada, the United States, or Australia, or even England for college. That was the goal. It was a college preparatory school, pre-K through 12. So when we got there, It was kind of confusing at first because it's Asia. If you've ever been in Asia or if you haven't, it's very different than the United States. It's very busy. Like you think New York City or Chicago or LA is busy. You haven't seen anything to you go to a city in Asia, okay? It is like the traffic is just bumper to bumper. There's scooters, there's taxis, there's bicycles, there's regular cars. It's like pandemonium there. Very noisy, but somehow like everyone's polite and safe at the same time. Like I said, the culture is different. Not everybody speaks English, and why should they? So we get there and it's a completely new environment, everything like that. My husband starts work and he's very busy with it. So at the time before we came to Taiwan, since he was hired on full time and my daughter was just going to go to school like a normal school day, I decided that because I was just going to sub there, the work permit was more expensive to get in Houston, Texas at the consulate than if I, already had my like spousal work approval permit, okay? Once we got to Taiwan. So I decided to wait the 1 or 2 weeks time frame so it wouldn't cost any money. And plus, like I wasn't looking to work the first 2 weeks of being there anyways, because I was just trying to help get our family settled in. And just a little background too on this, the apartment that we lived in was completely paid for by the school. Okay, it was completely furnished. It was a very nice apartment. So for those of you who are wondering about that, like the school did give us a completely furnished apartment. So like everything I'm saying right now, you guys are probably like everything sounds great. It just could be a little tense moving. Absolutely. Absolutely. So before we moved, I started corresponding with a few teachers at the school and also some of their spouses, and also some of the new families that were coming over there because the school is growing exponentially. And there was another woman that was coming over there who was also going to substitute teach. And the school needed a lot of substitute teachers because they really didn't have any. They like had zero. So she already had her work permit. She bought it in the US. And so she started working right away, which was fine. Like I said, I wanted to get my family settled in. So when it was time for me to like, like, come on, like I got to go do something, it was like crickets. Like I was not getting any substitute teaching jobs. Like every single one she was taking, it was ridiculous. And like I said, I was a certified teacher. I taught for many years in the States and she wasn't. So I even said something like something coming up, like what's going on? And they're like, yeah, she's available and you're not. I'm like, but I am available now. So just, think about it this way. Like, I didn't know anybody in the country. I was like, you're in an apartment in a big city. And yes, I was like trying to make the most of it, trying to explore, trying to like eat food, but it was all by myself all day long. It was like after a couple of weeks, it just kind of got old, like just imagine you're on vacation by yourself, basically by yourself, like all day by yourself, except that, in the evenings, all by yourself. I was starting to get very lonely. And especially because I couldn't like, just hang out with people. And a lot of the expat women, I'm just going to say this in the nicest way possible. They had a very different body shape than me. Okay. So I try to be friends with them. I was very outgoing. I try to be friends with them, but they excluded me from everything. And I'm going to bring this more into the story later. And I just felt very much alone, very alone. And I was kind of regretting my decision. And to top it all off, the pre-K teacher, she was like very old school Taiwanese, very old school Taiwanese. And she was just always kind of like telling me that my daughter was doing this and this and this wrong. And she would just I found, come to find out, she did that about all the kids, but it was like too much. It was just way too much. So let's just go to the astrology part real quick. Pluto at that time, Pluto was in Capricorn. My moon is in Cancer. So Pluto started to enter the second decan of Capricorn in 2015. My moon is in the second decan of Cancer. So Pluto was in my first house, my moon, Cancer moon, opposing that in my seventh house. So I really started to feel very emotionally hopeless. Like I wasn't getting any work. I wanted to go back to work eventually as full-time teacher. How could I have done that, if I was not getting any of these sub jobs? Saturn going through my 11th house. 11th house is a friendship. Saturn, like limiting those friendships, those networking opportunities. Jupiter was in Virgo at the time over my eighth house. And the eighth house is of shadow work. So Jupiter was definitely saying like, okay, we're going to teach you a lot about yourself. And Jupiter is also about traveling, right? So we're going to teach you a lot about yourself as you're traveling abroad. Like all these shadows, all these triggers are going to come up. Jupiter was also squaring Uranus. Um, Uranus is in my 11th house of, peer groups and things of the nature. Jupiter also squaring my nodes, my fifth house node and my 11th house node. So in Gemini and Sag. So I felt like things were just not going appropriate to timing. I just kind of felt like out of luck. I felt very unstable, dissatisfied. I felt so depressed. Just, I never felt so down, lonely, isolated, and like aimless in my whole life. And I know this might sound very ungrateful to people because people are like, well, your place was taken care of, you had money, your kid is healthy, like your husband's there, like what's your problem? Well, if you're alone all day in a foreign country, and I was even trying to learn Chinese, it's like, and I was playing badminton with like the kindergarten moms that spoke like mainly Chinese. I did it like 3 days a week. It's just still very isolating when you are rejected by the people around you. Okay. So I was really like trying my best to hang out with the teacher group and the expat wives and everything like that. But it just was not happening. Like, thank goodness some of these Taiwanese moms, even though they have very limited English, like invited me out to lunch and everything, because otherwise I would have felt completely alone. Like there was moms from Hong Kong, everything like that. At least I had them at the time, even though I couldn't have like, a real conversation for the most part, at least I had some women around me, women supporting me. So with these women, like I said, most of them different body shape than me, and I'm not like phobic of anything. I'm just saying I'm trying to think like always like why didn't they want me around? They shunned me basically from their community. And it was so frustrating. Like I even asked this one girl, she lived like 2 floors above me in the apartment, like, hey, let's hang out. She's like, oh, like I'm hanging out with this other woman today. I was like, oh, well, maybe you can join. And then she never responded. I was like, okay. And this was the other woman that was always getting the sub jobs and not me. And she was never a teacher. I don't even know if she had a college degree, to be honest. It was kind of crazy. So we go to the park, my husband, my daughter, and I, and we see the girl from two stories up from us with this other girl that came in at the same time as us that was getting all the sub jobs. And they were like, all chummy, all like cute together, like, oh, just like, talking and like holding each other's hands. And like I was like, hi. And they're like, oh, hi. And then they looked away real quick. I'm like, what? Like, what is this? Like, what? Like, what is going on? Like, this is awful. This is awful. So it kept going on and on like that for like 2, 3 months. Okay. And the third month mark was the worst. So now we're in November. Okay. This was around Thanksgiving time. I did actually get one sub job for like a whole week because they needed a real teacher and they loved what I did. They were just so happy. But after that, they still didn't ask me to come back in December yet. And it was not only that, but my daughter, she came back, she came down with like over a week, she had norovirus. And going to medical care in a different country is scary. And like navigating all that, even though they had really good medical care. But it was like really isolating being in the apartment with my daughter. So finally, when my daughter recovered from over a week of norovirus, which was really scary, I was just depleted. I felt alone. I felt depleted. I felt like I was worthless. Like I was in the worst depression of my life. And I've had some mood issues in my life, but this was like the worst. And one day I was just so sad. I felt so lonely, so unfulfilled, so just like aimless in my life. Like there was no point. I remember just walking out of my apartment in the hallway, like sobbing with my shoes off. And I was like, I'm just going to walk into the street and like, bye-bye. That's how bad Pluto opposition moon can be. Okay. So if your moon is in Leo right now, as we speak, the first decan of Leo, we're talking, this video is on Saturday, February 8th, 2025. And your moon's at the first decan of Leo, you might be feeling very similar right now. You might be feeling like you're very depressed, like your emotions are up and down. You might feel like you don't have a home base and you feel like you're not getting emotional fulfillment. So I walked into the hallway and my husband, something, he like looked at me and he said something. I don't even remember because I was so disassociated at that point. And he like held me and I looked at my daughter and she didn't know what was going on at all. She was only 4 years old. And she just like made this face at me. I was like, oh my God, I have to live. I have to live. So thank goodness I didn't attempt to self-delete I didn't self-delete myself, but I really had the ideation of self-deleting at that point. So fast forward 3 weeks later, like I started going to therapy with a British therapist online who definitely saved my life, cognitive behavioral therapy. I really highly recommend cognitive behavioral therapy. We started to unpack all my trauma, why I was getting so triggered being isolated, because my whole life, like I've had these issues where I've just not fit in, I've been rejected, people have not wanted me around, things of that nature, especially other women. And I'm willing to, like understand, like, was I doing anything wrong? Like we unpacked it all. Like, did I do something wrong? Did I break their boundaries? No, it was just they didn't want me around. They didn't like me. They just simply didn't like me. So, like I said, fast forward 3 weeks, Christmas time, I was still not feeling the best. But around January 1st, one of the teachers at the school who went back to the States with her husband and her other child, she went to premature labor like 4 months early. So she had to stay in the States. And they asked me to teach her 10th grade English, which I taught in the States before I had my daughter, and 12th grade English class, IBDP class. And I said yes. And they were kind of nervous. And they were like, well, we really wanted to give this job to, this is what the principal tells me, not the superintendent. The principal tells me we really wanted to give this job to that other lady, the one didn't, who wasn't even a teacher. But we couldn't because the parents would get angry. I was like, what? What? Like, what am I, excuse me? And the thing is, like, I was going through like all of the critical thinking. I'm like, okay, I dress professionally when I come here to teach. I don't smoke. I hardly drink. I smell good. I'm presentable. I don't yap all the time. Like what? Like what is going on here? So I start teaching. And from that first week, it was insane, guys. Like it was insane because everybody started apologizing to me, not that group, not the expat group or the teacher group that I would have been friends with, but I'm talking about like the principal of the high school, other teachers in the English department. They're like, oh, like it was kind of like like a quasi apology, like you're really good, like wow, like you're a real teacher. And the kids were like responding really well, of course, because I taught 10th grade in the States for years and years and years. English, like what is these same books, like of Mice and Men, like Night, like I've taught all these books. Like, what are you talking about? So the Crucible, like the play The Crucible, like I've taught all these plays, I've taught all these books, taught all these novels, poems, all of the Shakespeare, I've taught all of it, like the same fucking curriculum, back in the States. So the parents weren't loved me and I was happy, I was doing a great job. So I looked to see like what was going on with my transits, what was going on. And as soon as I got hired, Juno went, um, Juno in Scorpio was right on my Saturn in my 10th house. So that's like karmic contract, okay? Also, Juno in Saturn together often indicates that like you put the hard work in 10th house, you put the hard work in Scorpio, you went through all the shit, now the universe is going to reward you with something better, okay? And also Saturn transiting Saturn at the time, which was in Sagittarius at the time. Isn't that funny? Sagittarius in the 11th house, right? Because Sagittarius is all about travel. Went right onto my South Node in the 11th house and made a conjunction with that. So it was almost like you are rewarded for everything you just went through, everything you just went through. Even though Jupiter was still squaring my node, still, Jupiter's still squaring Uranus. Pluto was still opposing my moon. Saturn was still passing through my 11th house, all of it. But those little things, it was like Saturn does reward you. Like if you have highly Saturnian chart, like a Capricorn chart like mine, I have Saturn in my rising, Mercury and Saturn, sorry, not Mercury and Saturn, Mercury and Capricorn on my rising. Capricorn in my first house, my ruling planet, Saturn, because I'm a Capricorn rising in my 10th house in Scorpio. Sometimes we have to go through these really hard time periods and like the divine is testing us like how are you going to behave? Like I could have been ratchet, y'all. I could have like, gone and said horrible things about this person. I could have, um done like not been my authentic self to like join these women and throw this other woman who wasn't really even a teacher under the bus. I could have done all these horrible things, but I didn't. I just stayed authentic to myself. Yes, I went through a horrible depression. So I want you guys to know like you are going to go through a lot of tests in this journey. If you think like you can just escape the United States with everything that's going on right now, because that's what we thought too, because we saw it. We saw it when my daughter was born, 2011. It was 2015 when we left. We saw all the stuff that's happening right now that you guys are experiencing. We saw it then. And we're like, we got to get out of here. We got to go to another country because it's about to get crazy. It's all over the world. People act like this all over the world, okay? Um, I thank God for the Japanese, the Hong Kong, the Taiwanese people that were around me at that time, like helping me just to like, surrounding me with love as much as possible. When I wasn't getting, those jobs and everything. And, the American Canadian teachers were completely rejecting me. But even in the other countries that I've been to, this system that everyone does not like exists, okay? The system of, basically the matrix system exists everywhere. Big pharma, big agra, it's all over the place. It's all over, you cannot escape it. So, my lesson for you guys is that things will get better. I feel like I had to go through what I went through as an astrologer to be able to say, these are temporary things that we're going to go through right now. Okay, they are really temporary. And a lot of you cannot just say, I'm like going to go like literally self-delete, or I'm just going to, find somewhere else to live. It's going to get better. It's not going to get better. You're going to get better. Life is going to get better. You're going to have to learn how to sit with your internal self, get to know your internal self a lot, because after then, like it wasn't just everything was smooth sailing because I was teaching again. Yes, it did get better. My external circumstances got better, but my internal reservoir of strength was like, if I can get through that shit, if I can be patient and wait, I can get through basically anything. Anyways, I hope that helped. Let me know if there's any specific transits, especially outer planet transits with Pluto and Saturn that you guys want me to talk about in the future. And remember, make sure that you subscribe to my main channel on my website, sarahashley.astrology.com, to get weekly and monthly horoscopes and also other discounts, classes, and other benefits. And of course, if you like to book a reading at sarahashley.astrology.com. Thanks for listening to me today. I hope I made a difference in your life.